Welcome, everybody, to a special edition of the NFL Show on the Gurley True Sports Network. The NFL Show, as always, is brought to you by Betting.net. Betting.net is your best bet for finding the online sportsbook or casino that's right for you. Make sure you check them out at Betting.net. I am your host for our NFL Power Rankings Week 18 show. My name is Mike Goodpaster. I want to remind you guys you can meet us tonight, me and Dan Kornhauser, Steve Risley, all the guys, as we go on the NFL Prediction Show at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. Make sure you check us out. Come back right here, wherever you're watching it now. That show will be there. All right, guys, we are headed to NFL Week 18, probably the final week. We don't know what they're going to do with a Bengals-Bills game, which probably should be played somehow. You've got the extra week in between the Super Bowl. You could always move everything back, maybe play the Bengals-Bills next weekend, start the playoffs the weekend after. Is that what they'll do? Probably not. It's hard telling with the NFL what's going to happen from here on out. But today we're going to look at our top 10 power rankings, and we're going to start it off with a surprise because at the start of the year, I never thought I would have this team in my top 10. They were in it for a few weeks up until about a month ago, but it looked like they nosedived, and that's the New York Football Giants. And the New York Giants, coached by Brian Daboll, has basically changed the culture of this franchise in less than one season. And that's how quickly you can do it in the NFL if you get the right head football coach. And among the unsung heroes on this team that is locked in as a number 6 seed are wide receivers Richie James and Isaiah Hodgins, who shared the club lead with 4 TD grabs each. Now, another underlooked guy here, when we talk about the New York Giants, is Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones, his stats aren't off the charts, but you are looking at a guy that has thrown for 3,200 yards. He's completed 67% of his passes. He has a QBR of 92.5 for the season, 15 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. The knock on him before has been turning the ball over. This year, 3-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. Now, I don't think he is worth a max guaranteed contract after this season, but I think if I'm the New York Giants, I would much rather keep him than risk this somewhere else or go draft another rookie and start the process over. Daniel Jones, I think, has proven he's advanced enough this season finally to be able to become what the Giants and the Giants fans had hoped they would become. And I think the issues we saw before were with the coaching staff and the people around him in New York. And let's face it, outside of Saquon Barkley, this is a team with just a bunch of guys. And Daniel Jones has got this team with a solid defense and a great running game and great coaching. He's got them to the playoffs as at least a number 6 seed. And if you look at this, if they're going to go play Minnesota in Minnesota, they could beat Minnesota if that's your 6-3 game. We don't know if it will be if they go to San Francisco. I mean, I don't think anything is beyond the realm of possibility in the NFC playoffs because you've got teams like Tampa Bay that all of a sudden could get hot. We saw Tom Brady play like he was 25 last week. Now they may be a threat. They're going to win their division. They're going to beat a 4 seed, probably play the Dallas Cowboys in the first round. All right, now at number 9, we've got the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings are a team that, for lack of a better term, are the worst 12-4 team in the history of the NFL. And the reason I say this is this. So far right now, this 12-4 team that already has the division title in hand has been outscored by 19 points this season. Minnesota would have to win by 50 Sunday to avoid owning the worst point differential by a team with at least 12 victories since the 1970 AFL-NFL merger. Now, I will say this. I think Kirk Cousins has had a great season. Justin Jefferson's maybe the best wide receiver in football. Dalvin Cook's a stud. This team still has offensive line issues. They definitely have defensive issues. I think Kevin Connell has done a great job with this football team. He would be in that discussion for the NFL Coach of the Year, which I think Brian Daboll should win almost hands down. But the Minnesota Vikings are my number 9 team. Next up at number 8, we've got the Jacksonville Jaguars. Yeah, I've got an 8-8 team in the top 10 right now, which seems crazy. But this is a power rankings. This is not actually who I think is the best team right here, right through. This is right here, right now. And I know this feels like, high cotton for a team that's 8-8 and likely won't reach postseason if it loses to Tennessee on Saturday. But I don't expect them to lose to Tennessee on Saturday. Jacksonville has won 4 in a row, 6 out of 8. It is certainly performing in the top 10% or 20% of this league right now. They beat the Dallas Cowboys a couple weeks ago. They manhandled the Houston Texans. That's the Houston Texans team that almost upset the Kansas City Chiefs and the Dallas Cowboys over the last couple weeks, and the Jacksonville Jaguars took care of them. Trevor Lawrence is a quarterback to me that has progressed. He's progressed quickly, and I mean, right now, Trevor Lawrence looks like he may be the franchise quarterback that the Jacksonville Jaguars drafted him to be. At number 7, we've got the Los Angeles Chargers. This is a team I'm still not sold on. Really, I mean, I'm sold on probably my top 5 or 6 teams here. All these other ones are kind of interchangeable. And when you look at the Chargers, I don't think there's any player in the league who's been more underrated than running back Austin Eckler, who's never been named to the Pro Bowl. He's one of the 2 undrafted players since 1967 with at least 1,500 yards rushing and 15 touchdowns from scrimmage in successive seasons. Eckler will join Hall of Famer Lenny Moore, the old Baltimore Colt great, as the only player with 30 touchdowns, both rushing and receiving in the first 6 seasons, if he could catch one more pass. I'm pretty sure he will do that. Now, the Chargers, the question we have is when you get to the playoffs, the coaching. I mean, I think that they have a significant issue with coaching. And if you don't believe me, Brandon Staley has done some crazy things. He got away with the Cleveland Brown game where 4th and 2 on his own 40, 2 minutes left, he goes for it. Should have lost him the game, but the Browns missed a kick. Justin Herbert's a solid wider quarterback, very good wide receivers around him. This is a team that could do some damage, but I really think they're a year away. And a guy like Sean, if you put Sean Payton with the Chargers, I would put them right up there with the Bengals, Bills, and Chiefs next year. But right now, they don't have Sean Payton. So we're going to leave them at number 7. At number 6, we've got the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys, had all the smoke about Odell Beckham Jr. They went for T.Y. Hilton instead, and T.Y. Hilton paid dividends immediately for the Dallas Cowboys. Now, the Cowboys are a team to me. They can run the ball. You got Zeke Elliott. You got Tony Pollard. You got basically 2,000-yard rushers. You've got a big-time quarterback. You've got some very good wide receivers. And really, the defense, the first half of the season, people were saying was the best defense in football. That's not the case now. They gave up 34 points to Gardner Minshew and the Philadelphia Eagles a couple weeks ago. This Cowboys defense worries me. Now, they've still got a shot if the Philadelphia Eagles were to lose on Sunday to be the number 1 seed. But I think you're going to look at a 5 seed going to Tampa Bay. And a 5 seed going to Tampa Bay, the Cowboys have been able to beat the Bucs even this year. They lost them at the start of the year. And that's going to be a tough road to hoe. All right, guys, I want to remind you or bring to your attention right now that if you like social casinos, you should definitely look into signing up with stake.us and use our exclusive promo code here at the Grilling Truth of TGT Social, all capital letters, to secure your unique 5% rakeback bonus. It is a great place for playing social casinos, especially slots, table games, whatever you want. Make sure you check them out. Number 5, I know I've got this team ranked lower than most, but I will explain. And that's the San Francisco 49ers. I know they're riding a league best 9-game winning streak right now, but they were lucky to get out of Las Vegas with Jarrett Stidham at quarterback, and they win the game 37-34. The Niners haven't had wide receiver Deebo Samuel for their most recent victories. They need Deebo Samuel back. And I'm sorry, I'm not willing to buy into Brock Purdy after a few good games against a few mediocre teams and bad teams. So I don't trust Brock Purdy when it comes down to it. I think the 49ers defense is great. Bosa is dominant. They've got a great front 7. They got a good secondary. They can run the ball at will. The offensive line is good. Brock Purdy, I worry about Purdy, put it like that. I mean, he might be the guy, but I've got to see a little bit more before I'm going to rank them any higher than number 5 right now. My number 4 will be the Buffalo Bills. Now, what does Damar Hamlin situation do to the Buffalo Bills? Now, if any organization is built to weather the tragedy this group is grappling with right now, as Damar Hamlin fights for his life, and all indications are everything is getting better. He opened his eyes last night, squeezed his mom's hand. That's great. But this is a close-knit team. Sean McDermott is an excellent football coach. And, they've already won the AFC East Championship Whether they'll get a chance to host all the playoff games is a question that's going to have to wait at least, I mean, maybe until Sunday night, the way the NFL is going to drag this out. Now, I've got them ranked at 4 because I think they're better than that. I think the 3 best teams in the NFL are the Bengals, the Chiefs, and the Bills. The issue with the Bills right now is people forget right before DeMar Hamlin goes down, they lose a starting corner. Now you've lost safety DeMar Hamlin, and you've got to battle the Bengals and the Chiefs at some point, or maybe even the Chargers or Trevor Lawrence. The AFC is loaded with high-quality quarterbacks, and with a defensive backfield that's depleted and an offensive run game that only works when they play the Bears in Chicago. And let's face it, the Bears aren't going to be in the playoffs, and they're not going to be in the Super Bowl. So I think the Buffalo Bills have some major issues here to deal with over the next couple weeks. My number 3 team is the Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles I did have ranked up until 2 weeks ago. I was never honestly really sold on them, but when a team only loses one game, it's hard to put them at number 5 or number 3 or whatever. Now, they lost on the road at Dallas without quarterback Jalen Hurts. That's one thing. But getting handled at home by an also-run Andy Dalton-led New Orleans Saints with the number 1 seed hanging in the balance is something else entirely. Philadelphia is fortunate to face a Giants team in Week 18 that will be resting its starters. Even with that happening, we don't know yet if Jalen Hurts will play. This could be Gardner Minshew. I think Minshew's a good quarterback. But my issue with the Eagles is this. It was, beating or losing to the Cowboys on the road, not necessarily a bad thing. The Cowboys are a really good team. You didn't have your starting quarterback. My issue is you gave up 40 points. Jalen Hurts doesn't play defense for the Philadelphia Eagles. So is there something there that is wrong with that team there? Or is it just one of those games where that Cowboys got on fire and the Eagles had to play from behind? We're going to find out shortly when it comes to this Philadelphia Eagles team. If they get the bye, they should be in good shape, hopefully to get to the championship game for them. But I'm not sure. At number 2, I've got the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs are a team that I don't think is as good as they've been the last few years that they've played. But I do believe this. Patrick Mahomes is a quarterback that had a tendency to take a lot of chances that he didn't need to take. And I think we're seeing now maybe a lot of that was because he had guys like Tyreek Hill that could run out of the building. He has a league-leading 40 touchdown passes this season, and they've gone to 13 different receivers. If he throws a few more of those, Kansas City gets the win this weekend. They may end up with the number 1 seed. Really, when you look at it, it's according to how the NFL is going to roll with this. There's about 500 different directions the NFL could go. The Chiefs' question to me is, I don't know. I think they run the ball pretty decent from what I've seen. But my question with the Kansas City Chiefs is the defense. And don't forget, the Chiefs, when the Bills were healthy, lost to the Bills. They lost to the Bengals. So they've lost to what are probably the top 2 teams here. Once again, the Bills are at number 5 or 4 for me, just because of the injury issues they have in the secondary. Before we get to number 1, I want to remind everybody that it's not just sports betting. Betting.net compares the best online casinos so you can sit back, relax, and play the top online slots, poker, and table games. Make sure you check them out at betting.net. All right, number 1. We've got number 1, and I know you're going to say this is a homer pick, but if it was a homer pick, I would have been picking it the last few weeks because I really do think the Cincinnati Bengals are the best team in football. And they entered Monday night as the AFC's hottest team. They're running a 7-game win streak. Cincinnati, both the Bengals and the city, then rose to the occasion from a human standpoint while bearing witness to one of the scariest moments in NFL history. From a football perspective, questions still abound with this team. You've got the injury with Sam Hubbard. You got some injuries in the defensive backfield. Hayden Hurst did play, made a nice catch in the 10 minutes that the game was played. Though a win this Sunday will clinch a second straight AFC North crown. Maybe that's already clinched. We don't know because the NFL doesn't know what the hell is going on, as they usually don't. They need to get this straightened out and let people know what's going on now. I have a feeling that they're going to wait until after Sunday's games to see if that Bengals-Bills game really matters that much. I also think we could even see them flip a coin for a home field advantage. There's a lot of crazy things they could do. The NFL has a history of really dropping the ball in situations like this, all the way back to the 30s, 40s, 50s. You can find anomalies that never should have happened in arrays and teams getting stuff that they shouldn't have gotten. But when you look at the Cincinnati Bengals, to me, the offensive line, if you watch the offense, that first drive and in a couple plays on their second drive, They cut through the Buffalo Bills defense like butter. And I mean, the offensive line, especially interior guard to guard, is much improved over last year. I still have questions now that you got Hakeem Adeniji replacing Lyle Collins at tackle. I have big questions about Jonah Williams, but this is a team with Joe Mixon, Samaje Perine, even Travion Williams are loaded in the backfield to run the ball and to help block. Hayden Hurst. You get the Wilcox kid who's played really well at tight end as of late. And then wide receiver, how are you going to top T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, Trenton Irwin? I mean, this team is loaded all over the place. They've overcome injuries this year. They lost Jamar Chase for 4 games. They won 3 out of the 4, and they scored over 30 points in 3 out of those 4 games. So this is a team that is able to overcome adversity, and they're not afraid of the big stage in the big moment. All right, guys, those are my top 10 teams headed into week 18. Make sure you check us out tonight with the hold on, we got a message. All right, so we've got a message from Martin Carr. What's your view on Zach's coaching this late in the season? You always felt it as a weakness. I do feel that it is a weakness, the play calling, not the coaching as a whole. I think Lou Anarumo has proven he's one of the best defensive coordinators in football. And Zach Taylor, I think, is a solid coach. I have a lot of issues with goal line calls, 3rd and 1 calls where you run jet sweeps. I have issues with Zach, but this is the thing. In my opinion, when I look at the NFL, I think there's 7 or 8 really good head coaches. The rest are guys that I don't think are really great coaches. A lot of nepotism comes into getting this. I will tell you this, though. I think Zach Taylor's coaching from year 1 to right now has improved probably 50%. And I believe with the talent around him and with the coaches around him, like I said, Lou Anarumo is a stud defensive coordinator. And being around Lou Anarumo is going to help Callahan and Taylor because they're going to know even more about what a defense is doing to attack them. So I know I rip him, but you also got to realize I'm a man that was born in 1968. I grew up through the 90s. I grew up through Marvin Lewis. I get a little bit touchy because I just want my team to win. And I think this, I've got no problems with Zach Taylor. Well, I have some from time to time, but I think those problems each year have gotten a little bit less. I think he's learned well on the job. I think the coaching staff as a whole is awesome. I still worry about the front office. I know they say the Blackbirds are the reasons this turnaround's happened. It's really not. This turnaround is kind of the same thing that happened in Indianapolis. I still go back and say that if Peyton Manning doesn't get drafted by the Indianapolis Colts, they're probably the Indianapolis Rams by the mid-2000s instead of a new stadium being built in Lucas Oil and everything great has happened in Indianapolis. I think the Cincinnati Bengals turnaround was blowing that overtime game against the Miami Dolphins, which gave us Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow changed the culture because like a Peyton Manning, like a John Elway, these are guys that change it. Now, Martin, you're a 1969 old timer. Houday from the UK. I got a lot of friends over in the UK. I cover a lot of boxing. I think it would be about 9 o'clock in the evening right now, UK time. But if you get a chance, if you're up in the middle of the night and can't sleep, make sure you check out our NFL prediction show tonight. I was just planning on doing a power rankings. If anybody had any more questions or comments, we can go ahead and take those. But the NFL prediction show is always fun. Dan Kornhauser, NFL beat writer, will be on with me. It'll be live tonight at 8 o'clock Eastern time in the United States. Oh, hold on. Martin says it's 6. I thought it was later than that, Martin. But so if it's 6, Martin, that means 8 hours from now, you should be good to watch the NFL show because it'll only be like 2 in the morning. But you can always catch the rerun on Facebook as it goes. You can also check us out on Twitter Live. And we should have a Cincinnati Bengals show coming up in the next couple days. We were trying Joe Kelly, former Bengal linebacker Ty Robbins, does the show with me for the Bengals. And we are kind of trying to let the DeMar Hamlin situation play out so we could comfortably do that show. But for now, that's where we stand with the Bengals show. The NFL prediction show will be tonight. I want to thank Martin and everybody else that watched and listened. We're going to go ahead. We're going to wrap the show up here, guys. Make sure you check out betting.net. Make sure you check us out on YouTube and follow us on Twitter at Grilling Truth. I know a bunch of people just jumped on. I'm sorry, guys. The show is over, but you can go back and rewatch on Facebook in about 3 or 4 minutes. But I want to thank everybody for making their comments and watching the show today. But as always, I am Mike Goodpaster. You've been watching and listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends